Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's your girl Jennifer, and this is Against All Odds. I am back after a long time with a very interesting conversation. So today I want us to talk about the thin line between discipline and abuse. Let that sit with you for a moment, because this is something that happens regularly and we need to address it. And I want to put a context to it, and the context I want to put it in is from the African context. Abuse happens everywhere. Everywhere. It is sad to make this admission. Abuse happens everywhere. But because on this platform I like to address things from personal experiences or from lived experiences of people I know, so my context in this case will be from Africa and Kenya in particular. And so, before we even go further, we need to understand what abuse is. I am very keen about mental health, and these conversations are about our mental health to better our well-being and to even improve our quality of life. So, how do we have this quality of life if we do not understand what is abuse? Abuse is the misuse of anything, of something. Misuse of purpose. There is another definition of abuse, which is treating something with cruelty, and this has to be even repeated. So when you misuse something, it's abuse. For example, if you're given medication and you don't use it for the right purpose, that is abuse. If you're trying to discipline a child and you do not do it the right way, that is abuse. If you do something that is not right and keep on doing it repeatedly, then that's abuse. Then we need to understand that abuse is in different levels. It can be physical, it can be mental, emotional, it can be financial. It can be like, you realize people have been abused even financially. There's neglect, there's slavery. All this come and end up in their form of abuses. So today I want to talk about the common abuse that we know and that is easy to identify, because financial abuse is there, but sometimes it's not something that you can readily tell, even from, unless you go and dig into a conversation with somebody. And even if it has to be investigated, that will take time for you to be able to understand. But physical abuse, somehow there can be evidence, because people will have bruises, injuries, marks, stuff like that you could be able to identify. Emotional abuse could be seen because of how people end up being. Supposing somebody who was very outgoing, outspoken, starts getting withdrawn, lowers their self-esteem, probably you can come and start seeing traces and changes in their character that could tell you or could point fingers to emotional abuse. So, and even when people also talk about it. So these are things that somehow, in the context of abuse, these are the two forms of abuses that people really know much about and that are easily talked about. And I think somehow they are the easiest to do. For example, they're the easiest to misuse. So, we know what abuse is, we know how it can be done, and realize most of the times, where in my understanding and in my growing up, most of the times we used to be told what is wrong and not, like, you're told, don't do this because of this. Sometimes we were never told what the right thing was, so that when you see, because you know this is the right thing, if the right thing is not happening, you see something that is off, then you're able to question it. We need to address things from teaching kids and people what is right, because until they understand what is right, then it will be easy for them to know when something is wrong. But when you tell them what is wrong, what do they have as a measure for what is right? You get? Because probably you're telling me never to steal, but you're not showing me the right way of living a life. Then sometimes I could find myself stealing and I do not know, because I have never known the right thing. So this is where this is from the place I'm coming from. I grew up in Kenya. I grew up those many years ago. In the 80s, discipline in Kenya, and still is, but I think now things have toning down and people are embracing this education, information, awareness. So people are embracing other forms of discipline. But growing up in those years, discipline was purely and majorly through caning. I will put a cane somewhere here that you're going to see if you've never seen a cane that is used to beat and discipline or spank. So at home and in school, it was socially acceptable to be caned. So I have been caned. And my parents disciplined with a cane, but in my home it was rare. I would say it was rare, because my parents were strict and they didn't even need to use it. My mom was a teacher, and for those that have African parents and parents who are teachers sometimes, and African mothers, sometimes they do not even need to cane you or even say a word. They used to have that look, and once they give you that look, you know you need to set yourself right. Otherwise, hey, things will not be right. So my mom had this eye. My mom wears glasses and used to wear glasses. Did I ever find my mom not wearing glasses? I don't remember. Yeah, so my mom used to wear glasses. So if you're misbehaving and she looks at you through her glasses here, oh, my friend, you better style up, because you are going to be in for it. So, yeah, so my parents caned us, but I have never, thinking about it, I do not see any caning that was off with them, because I don't remember being bruised. I don't remember it being exaggerated, because for us, they were disciplinarians. They would tell you what you've done, why, and most of the times, for us to be caned, it used to be the last resort. You have been told many times, different other forms of correction have been implemented, so that used to really be like the last resort. And in my family, it worked. To be very honest, truth be told, in my family, I'm the only girl. If that cane was never used on me, why? I do not know. Yes. And I'm not advocating for that as the method of disciplining. You can use whichever, as long as it is safe, as long as it achieves purpose. But remember, we are not advocating for any form of abuse. So I was never abused by my parents. But then I went to school. And in school, it was the norm for teachers to use the cane. I remember I was in a day school. I don't recall in that day school us seeing something that was out of the ordinary. So, the experiences I want to talk about are experiences that I faced in boarding school. I went to 2 boarding schools in my primary education. That is where I want to base my conversation on. So in the first primary school, And I want, as I talk about this, I want you to see the effects of abuse. So I went to this boarding school. That was it was a good boarding school. We were being taken there. In my times, boarding schools were the in thing. It's like today having a private school. So those days, there were a few private schools, but boarding schools, the performance in boarding schools outweighed the performance of private schools. So for you to be taken to a boarding school, it means your parents really wanted you to like have the best of education. Yeah, so boarding schools were taken. I was taken to a boarding school. Yeah, and in boarding school, definitely, teachers were allowed to cane us. So I went to this boarding school. And I'm not limiting abuse to caning. And so listen to this story. So I went to this boarding school, and saying it with all humility and with all sincerity, I was a bright student. Always have been a bright student. I cannot credit it to anything. I can just say it's a natural thing. But when I went to this boarding school, as a student, there are things, as much as you're a bright student, there are things you don't naturally like. I am this student who naturally doesn't like to put a lot of effort in things. So like, I just need things to come easy to me. You know, things like English, geography, history. I found those to be very easy. But when it came to mathematics, it needs you to put some level of thinking and effort, which I didn't really like. So, math was not one of my favorite subjects. So we get this teacher. I remember her like it was yesterday. Should I name names? She probably doesn't even exist. So, okay. Some people who watch this could know her. She may still be somewhere. So let me call her. She was Miss G. So Miss G comes to this school, and when she joins the school, Miss G, let me first describe her. Short, dark, very hippie. She had one of these beautiful figures and body shapes. Yeah, so she was dark, short, and had that beautiful figure. So she came and she was our maths teacher. She was introduced to us. She was our maths teacher and ended up becoming our class teacher. When Miss G joined the school, you know, like when somebody comes into your space, you exchange energies. I don't think Miss G and me, our energies connected. Why, I cannot tell. But clearly, my energies and Miss G's energies, we didn't connect. And so when Miss G started teaching us mathematics, you realize it's not like I don't really like mathematics. But now, the fact that my energies and Miss G's energies are not connecting, somehow my love for mathematics is even going down. You get? And then Miss G had this policy and this thing, like after we do, she would give us these continuous assessments, and she would rank us and she would give us a pass mark. And if you didn't get that pass mark, you would have a certain number of strokes. Whoa. You're in boarding school, caning is allowed, and now this teacher has come and she has this standard. So the first time we did the test, definitely I got below her pass mark, I got the strokes. Second time, third time, so somehow I realized, because of the kind of relationship me and mathematics, and then being worsened by the kind of negative relationship I have me and Miss G, then I'm not even doing well in mathematics. And so I start performing. I was performing okay, even if I didn't like mathematics. Now I don't even like it. So my performance in mathematics has started dropping. Then, now to make it worse, I am getting punished every time we do a test for mathematics. So my performance has even gone down. You get? So what happened later? I just decided, what's the point? I will always be in Miss J's bad books of failing and not getting to the pass mark. So why bother? So I stopped bothering. I would say this. Sometimes some of the things we do and some of these education systems we find ourselves in, sometimes they don't bring the best out of us. And one time I wanted to do a video and talk about what the education system does to some people. But for this conversation, so for me, definitely, this caning always, and Miss G did seem to really like me. In those days, I grew up in a generation and in an era where teachers would either like you or don't like you. And for you, you'd either like the teacher or not like the teacher. So this was like a bad coincidence where the teacher doesn't like me and I also don't like the teacher. So, and consequently, I also don't like the subject she's teaching. And so you can see all these negatives and negatives and negatives. So I had a negative relationship with the teacher, negative relationship with the subject, to the point I just withdrew and I decided when a test would come, do you know, it got so bad that sometimes I would just write my name and go trying the easy questions. The ones that I think I need to really think, I know, what's the point? Then I'd leave them blank. And I remember Miss Ju would put big question marks. And those are the days they would write, see me, oh my goodness. It was bad, you know. Yeah. So that was it. It got to a place where Miss G would even say things. For you, you never even put effort. You will fail even in your final exam. You will fail. That is now the national exam. So you see, we have come from negative energies to me failing. Now she has gone a notch higher. She's even verbalizing it. And who was I? When Miss G would do that, I can tell you, I was one of these students who, for me, I was a big-headed. I was a very strong-willed person. So, I used to be these students who the teacher is talking and you're rolling your eyes. No wonder she hated. Oh my goodness. Because I felt like, like, I can't hit you, I can't talk back at you. So, let me do that thing where maybe I look away, maybe I roll, Anyway. If only we knew better then. It's growing up, teenagehood is a challenge. So yeah. So she started even verbalizing things, and you see, most of the things that should say, they started even like just being real, because I was thinking like, she'd never even appreciate me. Even if I pass, she'd never even like me. So what's the point? So let me fail. I can promise you that attitude, I carried it till I finished primary school, got to high school, never really bothered. I think mathematics was off. It was one of the subjects I didn't do so well in compared to the high grades I got in all the other subjects. So the low grade, I will call it low grade compared to the high grades I had, lowered my mean grade. As much as I passed, but I could have done better if I had passed math. But now I'm trying to show you what this did. So, what kind of abuse was that when it moves from caning to now she's even verbalizing things to me? Now, hold that thought. In the same school, we had another teacher. This teacher was called Mr. L. The same school. Now, Mr. L was a discipline master. Any school I have gone to, when a teacher was made the discipline master, it means they were the teachers that discipline you. Whoa! Like once you're sent to that teacher, you're just regretting, you're just cursing, you're just crying, So there was this Mr. L. Mr. L would hit with a cane. Oh my goodness. He would beat us. He would use force. Oh my goodness. It was bad. But now, Mr. L went to another level where I say there's a thin line between discipline and abuse. And this one, that time and those years when we were that young, I come from a generation where the teachers were like some demigods. You never questioned them, you never even reported them, you never even talked about it. You would hurt in silence, or suffer also in silence because you're afraid you will tell your parents and your parents will think you're disrespecting the teachers, they will end up disciplining you. Or you will tell your parents, then the parents are going maybe to mention it, then the other teachers are going to gang against you and treat you differently or show you a disliking. So let me tell you clearly how Mr. L moved this abuse and took it to another level. Mr. L would come if you're a girl and you've done a mistake and he has to discipline you. He would pinch us here. He would go for your breast and pinch. What form of disrespect and abuse is that? Of all the places, why that place? Why? It happened to many of us. I am not talking about something that just happened to other girls I know. It happened to me. Actually, it is recently when I've been thinking about these things and seeing all the abuse that I realized he used to do that, and which we were never comfortable because, when you're a teenage girl and that time you're adolescent, your hips are developing, your breasts are growing, definitely those are the things that make you feel a bit insecure. So when a teacher goes and that's a place they want to pinch in as they discipline you, how does that make you feel? It was so disgraceful. It was so disgraceful. But we never ever even talked about it. To be very honest, I think I'm even talking about it now on this platform. I not unless we ever talked about it as girls in school then, I don't know. But like openly, I've never even talked about it because it was treated, it was normal. We never even reported it. I've never even told my parents about it. And that's what I'm saying. If you do not teach girls or boys, men, women, what is right, when something is done wrong, they would never know. So when we were never taught the right way of being disciplined, like this is what discipline is, and if this crosses, then boundaries have been crossed and this is wrong. So for him to do that was okay. There are teachers who would pinch students on the thighs, in between your legs, whether you're a guy or a lady, And it was normal because whoever told us and taught us that when that happens, somebody has crossed the boundaries, So that is one. Two incidences that I've mentioned different that happened in one school. I moved from that school, I went to another boarding school. In this boarding school, we also had one teacher, discipline master as well. His name is Mr. N. Whoa. Mr. N he was petite in structure. But if that teacher started beating you, my goodness, it was like World War X. This guy. So now this school moved even this discipline to another level. I will put the chairs here so that you can see the kind of chairs and desks would have. Yeah? So they would put the chair in front of you, and the backrest of the chair had a space in between. So on that space, you'd have to put your head through that and hold the feet of the chair. And then the teachers would cane you. And all of us, both boys and girls, we used to be caned on the bum. Now, just think about that. How is that discipline? I don't know whether that is slavery, because I have watched movies where slaves would be treated like that. So I am wondering whether that was really discipline, or it was slavery, or it was... But this was abuse of another level, because that is how you had to put... Just imagine in that position, you are helpless and whoa, would be beaten. In that school, would be beaten to the point of we started finding clever ways of making it easier for us. So we will double up and wear our PKs inside, would wear bikers, would wear... Sometimes you'd even try and spice up your bum and put in your sweater or a piece of cloth if you know you today is going... Because in that school, there was so much pressure to perform. So we really had very high marks and everything. So pass marks. So after we do our test, you just know we're going to be beaten if you have not reached a certain mark. Luckily for me, in terms of performance, those canes, those I really avoided, because definitely I used to perform. But there are subjects that I wouldn't really get away with, like mathematics, as I've said, because you can say my origin and my foundation in the subject has been bad, and then you come and still there's that mentality that you need to still be caned, you know. So just imagine students who would find them being caned in almost every subject. You know, in my time, we used to do 7 subjects. So you can imagine you've been caned for 7 different subjects by 7 different teachers with 7 different capacities and strengths and attitudes. You know, guys, it was bad. It was bad. This school, we had the scholars and boarders. I remember sometimes after exam results, some day scholars would never come to school until they're sure the caning season is over. And some teachers would be so ruthless that the minute those students came back, they would still beat them because they knew why they didn't come to school. And this led to many students even dropping out of school. How unfair and how unfortunate is that? You know, some students ended up like... Do you know how you become immune to canes? You just know you'll be caned, and so you harden. I don't know. Life has a way of just... They adapted to beating and... So now, let me tell you how this abuse went. I don't know. Let me not lift it when it's 1, because it would look like I'm being funnier. So this finger, if you look at it compared to this other finger of mine, they're not the same. This one is bigger. The reason why, one time we were being beaten. So in that school, we used to be beaten on the bum. Some teachers would beat you on the hands, or you'd remove your shoes and then beat you on your bare feet. So you can imagine you've been beaten, you're limping, you can't walk. It's gross, it's ugly, but just bear with me for this conversation. So, I don't know what had happened. I can't remember what mistake we have done, but I was in this mistake. And these 2 teachers decided to discipline us. I think we were a few of us. But I don't know, when it came to my turn, there was so much intensity on the beating. I was beaten to the point, in the course of the beating, that pressure was so much, this part of my finger, my nail, between my nail and my finger, it burst and I started bleeding. It is that saved me, and the teacher stopped beating me. And I promise you, since that day, that is what disfigured my finger till date. If you came close today and saw my finger, you'd realize it's disfigured. And then when the nail grows, I have to use something sharp to cut there's some skin that grows from the place that the skin split. Till today. Now I want to ask you, if you're listening to me and watching me today, was that discipline or was that abuse? Because if you are beating me to the point of bleeding, what kind of discipline is that? Have I even mentioned that some students used to be beaten and even faint? And I heard teachers say, yes, be quick, get up, you're pretending. And some of them would even be beaten in that state until the teacher realizes, whoa, this kid is not responding. And then they start giving first aid. Is that really called for? Is that called for? Why am I talking about this today? It's because this still happens in some places. But also, remember, I said abuse is not just one form. I have given the form of the canes that used to be used on us. What about these people who are physical? You have had this domestic violence, domestic abuse, physical abuse. Some people, where do they learn this from? Because there are people who, I think, growing up, anytime they wanted to settle a score, they had to be physical. Why? Because they were not shown any other way of settling scores. Because wounded people wound others. Sometimes even abused people end up being abusers themselves. You see? So, clearly, some of the things and the ills we are seeing in the society today is because they have a root. They have a root that has never been addressed. Honestly speaking, from where I sit and from where I come from, it is now that I'm in the world and even now being in the West, because if you're back in Africa, there are some things you will see. How many times did we ever see women being battered on the street and then you don't interfere? That is a marital issue. But was it right? If we had been taught and shown that, no, that is not right. Anytime you see somebody trying to beat a woman or a woman trying to hit a man, then you should stand up to it because it's not right. I saw one time a video that even talking about it still makes me feel so bad. When a woman is paraded in front of so many men, I don't know what she had done. And it was, actually I saw it on Facebook many years ago. And this woman was being beaten publicly, one man after another. That is not discipline. That is outright abuse. And these are men in a society that should be upholding the right thing. So just imagine, and some of them were elderly men, some were even young men. Now tell me, when these people, if this is the attitude they have, what will they do in a society when something does not go wrong? Will they not be the people rioting everywhere? Sometimes we can go publicly and try to start and say, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. But are we going to wear down the root where it all starts? Because for me, I grew up seeing that. Nobody ever told me that that was abuse. It is now that I have grown up and I'm realizing, no. If I continue to be in my Kenyan society, where would some things be? Because being in the West, the law is different. It restricts you from doing some things, and if you do them, then there are very severe consequences. But in Africa, sometimes even the consequences are not there, or even if they face them, sometimes they walk out with a lot of pride and feeling like, oh, they have achieved, But clearly, are we talking to our children and telling them, if you see this, this is not right, and show them what the right thing is? Because think about it, like, sometimes, yes, we could also help ourselves not to be abused. For example, imagine that Miss G. Probably if I had this notion and knowing that sometimes you can overcome evil with good, so I could have just tried to put a little effort in the subject, whether she likes me or not, but it would have helped me avoid the many times she would cane me, or the many times she would say these negative things. Somebody just needed to empower me to know, don't resign and just say it's okay, and just think like math is this hard thing and I will not even put effort. Somebody, if I had gotten somebody to just empower me, to tell me if this is not how you should address this issue. And I didn't even have somebody to talk to, because if I had, I would have dealt with it better. I couldn't tell my parents, I was scared. I couldn't tell my friends, teachers. There was no teacher that we could open up to. In those school days, we used to have this guidance and counseling teachers, but sometimes you went to tell the guidance and counseling teacher something only to see other teachers have a certain negative attitude towards you, and you realize the guidance and counseling teacher has maybe said something to them. You realize. So why will you, after that has happened, would you even trust the teacher to go and tell them anything again? So that is where I come from. And with that, I want to find out, do you see how discipline was abused? And we ended up being abused, yet somebody was saying they are disciplining us in an institution where they should give us skills to help us become better people in the future. But if in that institution they're instilling things that make us even worse, emotionally, socially, mentally, physically, because now I live with a disfigured finger because of a teacher. Guys, we need to stand up against abuse. There are better ways of disciplining children. There are better ways of correcting. There are better ways of addressing issues. But today, so that I do not empower the word abuse, I want you to take this from this conversation today. Teach anybody you know, be it a child, be it a young person, even yourself. Teach yourself the right thing. And anytime you're teaching anybody anything, don't teach them how not to. Teach them how to. Because if they know the right thing, it will be obvious. They will know what is wrong and they will be able to stand up to it. They will be able to challenge it. But if you go to teach what is wrong, then it means we have lost it. Because when the right things comes, it will just pass by them. After all, they don't know it. So we need to do better, because when we know better, we do better. Now, I have highlighted some of these issues. Please share your experiences. Share what you think about. Do you think there's a very thin line between discipline and abuse sometimes? So, as I always say, to change the world, you need to change your mind. It has been Against All Odds. I'm your girl, Jennifer. Catch you in the next video. Bye.